You thought I forgot everything. But the truth is, I remembered it all.
3 days before Christmas, I woke up feeling empty. My parents had both died that year, Mom in June and Dad in September. The house was silent. No Christmas music, no smell of cookies baking. Just me and the quiet. I'd retired in March after 40 years as an auditor. Spent my whole career finding discrepancies in financial records, catching people who thought they were clever enough to hide things. I was good at it, really good. The kind of good where numbers told me stories that people tried to keep secret. I went to my study to dig out some old holiday decorations, thinking maybe I'd put up the model train for when the grandkids visited. That's when I found it. A burgundy notebook shoved in the back of a drawer. My wife Rachel's handwriting filled the pages. I opened it without thinking much about it. Page 1 hit me like a truck. Why does he always breathe so loud? Page 3 had, "Those ugly brown cardigans make him look pathetic." Page 6 said, "Nobody wants to hear about his boring job." There were 57 entries total. I counted them twice. These weren't just random thoughts. These were things she'd said to me, out loud, in front of other people, at our daughter's birthday party, at Thanksgiving dinner with her colleagues sitting right there, at neighborhood barbecues. She'd tear me down in public, then act like we were fine in private. The notebook was her personal record of how she viewed me, apparently a joke she kept track of. I'm an auditor, was an auditor. Old habits die hard. When I see patterns, I investigate. So I'd been keeping my own records for a while. Not because I was planning anything specific, just because something felt off. Her credit card showed hotel charges that didn't match the story she told me. Uber receipts for rides I didn't know about. Her boss Marcus laughing way too hard at her jokes at the company holiday party, while she looked at me like I was furniture. The thing about emotional misuse is that once people think you're checked out, they assume you're blind too. But I wasn't blind. I was watching and documenting, because that's what I do. I found a receipt from a place called Giovanni's. $260 for dinner. Corporate expense, approved by Marcus. The date was September 19th. The same night Rachel told me she was at a charity event for literacy programs. She even showed me the flyer. Wore a nice dress, said she'd be home late. When she got back around midnight, she was vague about the whole thing. Said the food was bad, and there was some weird entertainment that made everyone uncomfortable. Next day, I was checking some quarterly reports out of habit. Found Marcus's reimbursement for that exact restaurant, that exact night. When I asked Rachel about it casually, she barely looked up. Oh, that was me. Work stuff. Like I was too dumb to understand. That's when I started really paying attention. Every expense she filed under Marcus's name, I printed and filed. Every time she said she was somewhere and the records showed otherwise, I logged it. Hotel receipts, GPS data, keycard access logs. You'd be surprised what information is available if you know where to look and who to ask. One night she came home at almost 2 a.m, flushed and distracted, smelling like champagne and soap that wasn't hers. Said she'd been at a strategy session. I helped her to bed, tucked her in, then went to my computer. New entry in my spreadsheet. Room service at the Riverside Suites. Billed at 12:47 a.m., $96. Approved by Marcus under Executive Hospitality. Emailed Marcus's assistant the next day, asking for updated quarterly reports. Got them within an hour. There it was, on page 6, cross-referenced to that same expense. I printed 2 copies. One went in my file labeled Q4 Projections. Nobody ever looked at it. The second went in a sealed envelope with my daughter Emma's name on it. She was 16 then, already asking why her mom and I slept in separate rooms. I told her I snored. She didn't believe me. I gave her that envelope and said, "Don't open this unless things get really confusing, or someone tries to change the story." She looked scared but nodded. Fast forward to December. I'd been retired for 9 months. Rachel thought I'd gone soft, that retirement made me passive. Her lawyer thought I was an easy target. Marcus thought he was untouchable. They were all wrong. I decided to drive home 3 days before Christmas, arriving a day earlier than expected. 6-hour drive. I didn't listen to music or call anyone. Just ran through numbers in my head. Account numbers, dates, clause numbers from the prenuptial trust agreement we'd signed 30 years ago. The timestamp from security footage she didn't know existed. When I pulled into the driveway, there were 7 cars parked there. Rachel's, Emma's, her sister Jennifer's ridiculous green SUV, a black Mercedes with out-of-state plates that I recognized from traffic camera screenshots near the Riverside Suites, and 3 others I didn't recognize, probably rentals. Through the front window, I could see people inside. Not a party, something more formal. I noticed folders, wine glasses that nobody was drinking from. The tension was visible even from outside. I grabbed the bag of Christmas gifts I'd wrapped. Matching pajamas for everyone with their names embroidered. Even got a set for the dog. Nothing for Rachel, though. Not anymore. When I opened the door, the room went silent. Rachel stood by the fireplace in a dark red dress, hair perfect. Too perfect. This was planned. Marcus stood next to her, hands folded, trying to look confident. Emma was halfway down the stairs, eyes wide, trembling. She wasn't supposed to be there. She was supposed to be in Vermont until Christmas Eve. "David, you're just in time to sign," Rachel said, voice too cheerful, too fake. She held up a stack of papers, professionally bound. Her lawyer, a guy named Patterson, stood by the dining table. My lawyer, Wilson, was in the corner, looking defeated. He hadn't realized he'd already lost the game before it started. "Sign what?" I asked. Rachel smiled like someone who thinks they're holding all the cards. "Well, with everything going on, we thought it'd be best to finalize the divorce before the holidays get complicated." Prescribed Spectrum stepped forward with a pen. "We've reviewed everything. Nothing unexpected." Admire, he wouldn't meet my eyes. That told me everything. They'd either confused him or bought him off. Jennifer stood in the hallway with a tablet, smirking. Her arms were crossed tight, but I noticed her fingers shaking. She was nervous. That amused me. Emma came down the stairs slowly. "I thought you weren't coming until tomorrow," she whispered. "Change of plans," I said quietly. Then to the room. "Nobody's going to offer me a drink?" Marcus laughed. "Let's handle the formalities first. Then we can toast to new beginnings." His eyes lingered on Rachel. Not subtle at all. I took the pen, held it, turned to Rachel. "You always did hate surprises." "Shirts," she blinked. "What?" I clicked the pen. "You'll love this one." And I signed. Not their documents, though. The version I'd brought with me. The one they hadn't seen yet. The confusion started immediately. Marcus's confident expression cracked. Patterson cleared his throat like something had gone very wrong. Jennifer squinted at the signature page, like she'd missed something important. I handed the pen back and opened my briefcase. Pulled out my own folder, professionally bound, signed and notarized over a month ago. I placed it on the table in front of Rachel. "This is the legal version." Her face twitched. "This isn't the same document." "No," I said. "This one's actually legally binding." She looked at Marcus. He looked at Patterson. Patterson looked like he needed to sit down. The air in the room changed completely. That soft click of my briefcase opening seemed to echo. Nobody was talking anymore. I pulled out a thick blue binder from a legal consulting firm I'd used. When I set it on the table, the embossed silver seal caught the light. Marcus squinted at it. Jennifer leaned in, expecting a mistake. Rachel's smile disappeared. "This isn't the version we discussed," Rachel said, trying to stay calm. I didn't answer, just turned the folder toward her and flipped to the signature page. Both our names, witness signatures, official seal, dated and stamped over a month ago. "This was notarized a month ago," Patterson said slowly. "How?" I looked at him like a teacher with a disappointing student. "Because your client doesn't read footnotes or trust disclosure schedules, but I do." Schlaham stepped back. "David, this doesn't include the revised property distributions." "No," I said, "because those were never legally binding. We never signed that version. This one, however, references the irrevocable prenuptial trust that was amended 4 months ago under Article 3. Patterson paled. Jennifer leaned forward. "Wait, what trust?" Merging at a head. "Her. The one that pays the mortgage on the lake house you've been living in since April." The one I had frozen last week. Keep the towels, though. They were a wedding gift. Her jaw clenched. Marcus cleared his throat. David, maybe this is a misunderstanding. Unwilling to him slowly. Marcus, you authorized 3 corporate expense reports for client dinners with my wife at Giovanni's downtown. I have receipts, security footage timestamps, and reservation confirmations all under your name. Want to talk about misunderstanding? Mouth opened and closed like a fish. Rachel tried again, reaching for wine to steady herself. This is crazy. You're twisting everything. No, I said calmly. You just assumed I wasn't paying attention. Wilson finally spoke from the corner. David, I wasn't informed of this filing. I cut him off without raising my voice. Wilson, I retained different counsel months ago. You were always just for appearances. Your work here is done. Send your invoice to my office. His face went red. He gathered his things in silence. Patterson stood, trying to salvage something. I'd recommend we take a recess. There's no recess, I said, placing my hand flat on the signed document. This is already filed with the State Compliance Board. The financials are restructured, and the board at Marcus's company received the compliance documentation this morning. Rachel's wine glass shook. What documentation? You'll see. Jennifer looked between them like she'd walked into the wrong movie. Nobody was yelling. Nobody had to. The silence was louder than any explosion. I pulled out the Christmas gifts and set them on the floor by the couch. One by one. Emma's name. Mine. Even one for the dog. None for Rachel. Marcus tried to take control. David, he said, voice low, maybe we should talk privately. No need to make this more public. Public? I repeated. Is that your concern? His gestured at the others. We're reasonable men. We can align our priorities. Corporate speak for, let's bury whatever you know. I reached into my briefcase again and pulled out a small package wrapped in plain black paper. No ribbon. I handed it to him. What's this? He asked. A gift. Open it before you say another word. He unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a black box. When he opened it, there were 2 flash drives nestled in foam. One red, one silver, each labeled in white. Red, audit trail. Silver, compliance logs. His smile faltered. Review them both, I said. The red one has transaction records going back 18 months. Corporate reimbursements miscategorized as client development. Dinners, hotel suites. One spa entry that got approved on a Sunday. He started. You don't remember authorizing them. I know. But you did, or at least your login did. That's where the silver drive comes in. His throat moved. Compliance logs? Keycard entries, IP logins, calendar screenshots, standard cross-reference material. He looked down at the drives like they might explode. Why would you have these? He whispered. Because I know the difference between coincidence and corruption. His face went white. He understood now. This wasn't emotion. This was precision, an auditor's revenge. All data, no mercy. You can't prove intent, he said quietly. I smiled. Marcus, I don't have to. You're a C-level executive with sloppy compliance controls and a personal relationship with a beneficiary in an open trust. The hint of impropriety is enough to trigger an external audit. You know that. He stared at me like someone watching a storm roll in. Why now? He asked. Because I was tired of being polite. From the corner, Jennifer glanced over suspiciously. Marcus slid the box into his coat pocket. You're risking a lot, he muttered. No, I said calmly. I'm reclaiming what you mistook for weakness. I returned to the table and opened the folder to section 5.3. There it was. A clause Rachel had skimmed past every time. Spousal misrepresentation impacting fiduciary assets. It wasn't just a trust clause. It was an ejection button. That first receipt from Giovanni's stuck with me because Rachel hated seafood. But there it was. $260. Client dinner. 2 entrees, wine, desserts. Signed by Marcus. The date was September 19th, the night she said she was at a literacy charity event. Showed me the glossy flyer. Wore a green dress. Came home late with vague stories about bad food and weird entertainment. Next day, I checked the company portal out of habit. Old reflexes. There was Marcus's signature on the reimbursement, logged at 11:42 p.m., the exact night she was supposedly with librarians. I asked her about it casually, didn't accuse, just mentioned it was funny that Marcus had dinner at Giovanni's the same night she was at her event. She barely looked up from her phone. Oh, that was me, work stuff. Like marriage wasn't work, but I didn't push. Something settled in me, though, a quiet shift. I'd been cataloging her insults for years, but this was different. This was a pattern, the kind of thing I'd spent a career unraveling, so I started documenting properly. Not emotions, data. Every reimbursement filed under Marcus's name, every time she claimed to be somewhere and records showed otherwise. GPS metadata, email headers, keycard logs. I had access through old friends willing to share information over drinks. Kept it all in a folder on my computer labeled Q4 Projections. Nobody ever looked at it. One night she came home at 1:47 a.m., flushed and distracted, still in heels. Smelled like champagne and unfamiliar soap. Said she'd been at a breakthrough strategy session. Her words slurred just slightly. I helped her to bed, covered her with the quilt, said nothing, then sat in my chair and opened the spreadsheet. New entry. Room service at Riverside Suites, $96. Approved at 12:34 a.m. under Executive Hospitality. Melts Marcus's assistant for quarterly reports. Got them within the hour. Page 6 had the cross-reference for that expense. I printed it. One copy for my file, second copy in that sealed envelope for Emma, because she was 16 and asking questions. Why did we sleep in separate rooms? I said I snored. She didn't believe me. I gave her the envelope. Don't open this unless things get confusing or someone tries to change the story. Sure, she nodded but looked scared. I knew she hoped it wouldn't matter, but lies spread like mold. Everything ends up smelling like rot. Rachel thought she was clever. Marcus thought he was untouchable. They were playing games with someone who audited retirement plans for fun. Every smile I gave them was a ledger entry. Every nod was a receipt. This wasn't a reaction, it was a reconciliation. By the time I sat back down in that room, the air was thick. You know that wait at funerals, right before someone breaks down? That collective held breath before something terrible gets said? I signed the final page of my document. Slow, deliberate. No drama. Then closed the binder and slid it across the table. Rachel's fingers hesitated before touching it. She opened it, skimmed too quickly. Then her eyes narrowed. This version doesn't include the deferred distribution addendum or the real estate carve-outs, she said. It's missing sections. She looked up. For the first time in years, she wasn't angry. She was uncertain. Patterson stepped forward, brow furrowed. He scanned the document like he expected a trap. Instead, he found a date, one that preceded every conversation they thought they controlled. He checked his watch reflexively. That little glance meant he knew he was behind on something. That something was already in motion. David, Patterson asked slowly, where did you file this version? I didn't raise my voice. State Compliance Board, 2 weeks ago, with supplemental documentation for marital fiduciary breach and unauthorized asset allocation. Silence. He blinked. Under what grounds? Gmail. Spousal benefit fraud. Section 47B. Same clause your client's company cites in their executive policy manual. Right. Marcus stiffened, then glanced away, pretending not to listen. Patterson turned pale. David, that clause applies to intentional misrepresentation of financial disclosures. I know, I said. That's why I filed it. Her signature appears on several asset documents containing values inconsistent with her annual spousal income summary. That's not clerical error. That's perjury if tested. Restrained stood up fast. What the heck? You went behind my back. Silenced, I stayed seated. No, I went through proper channels. You went behind my back. There's a difference. Patterson stepped away. I need a few of her several dollars in forgetting for lands. I need the rager and the room site date, unless away. I need to call my office. Crimson, I said. He stopped. Excuse me? I submitted all documentation under sealed review. Your firm is listed as having prior contact with an involved party. Until cleared, any legal communication could be interpreted as tampering. That's when he started sweating. Actually sweating. He put his phone down. Jennifer looked up from her tablet like someone hit her with ice water. What does that mean? It means, I said, if anyone here tries to clarify facts now, it may be interpreted as obstruction, especially if the benefit affects anyone's taxable distributions. Jennifer, you might want to check the title on that lake house. She sat down without another word. Patterson was blinking rapidly. You filed a fraud report against your own wife? No, I submitted a request for audit. The fraud determination is for them to make. I simply handed over documents and inconsistencies. And the drives, Marcus muttered, barely audible. I turned to him. Don't worry, Marcus. You're listed as a secondary beneficiary in one filing. That creates a liability cascade. HR will want to talk. Probably tonight. He ran a hand through his hair, staring at his untouched wine glass. Rachel was pacing now, shoes clicking on hardwood like a warning. This wasn't supposed to be... This is insane. You waited years just to blow everything up? No, I said. I waited to see how far you'd go. Turns out, all the way. Trembling, hadn't raised my voice. Patterson sat down, suddenly more concerned about his own liability than hers. The first buzz came while I was unfolding page 2. Claire was whispering frantically to Rachel, gripping her phone like a life raft. Buzz. Marcus twitched, pulled his phone out, glanced at the screen. Buzz. He answered. Marcus here, he said quietly, a muffled voice on the other end. Then words loud enough to hear. Sir, we just got served. Malaysia's face froze. Who? A crackle. External auditors from the board. They have credentials and internal access logs. A pause. From your wife's husband. All color drained from Marcus's face. He turned toward me like I'd pulled out a tool and aimed it at his head. He stared. Not with anger, with comprehension. The slow horror of a man realizing his playbook had been stolen and turned against him. I didn't say anything. Didn't have to. Because other phones started buzzing. Patterson's, Jennifer's, Wilson's from his briefcase. Only mine didn't buzz, because I already knew what was coming. Patterson glanced at his screen, squinting. Oh no. Marcus ended his call, still pale. What did you do? Shameful. They're following the paper trail. You taught me that, Marcus. Always track approvals. Always note timestamps. You said that back in 2014 at the compliance conference. You said audits are only scary if you're hiding something. He swallowed. They don't have authority, he said weakly. They do, I said loud enough for everyone. It's a secondary review triggered by conflict of interest. You listed my wife as a consulting asset on 3 projects. I had someone at the board flag the entries for review last quarter. They scheduled the audit last week. Patterson was flipping through the folder like it might sprout a loophole. Jesus, you timed this? I planned this, I corrected. Rachel had backed into a corner by the fireplace, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. Her posture was fury, but her eyes showed fear. Marcus staggered backward into the armchair like he'd lost altitude mid-flight. You didn't just go after her. You went after the whole infrastructure. You brought her into it, I said. You used your position to blur personal and professional. You made her your liability. I just turned on the light. Patterson's voice cracked. This could ruin multiple people. I stared at him. Good. Hey, another buzz. Marcus's phone again. He didn't answer, didn't move. Because when you audit the fraud, it doesn't scream. It collapses quietly. At first, I thought Emma was crying because she was caught in the middle. That's what kids do when walls cave in. She looked so small on those stairs. 18 years old in an oversized hoodie, hair messy, like she'd been dragged into this before having breakfast. She didn't speak when I first walked in, just stared, then ran upstairs. Not from anger or fear, something else. Hours later after the signing, after Marcus sat down like a dying animal, after Jennifer started texting with panic on her face, I felt Emma's hand on my arm. We were in the hallway, the others still shouting, scrambling. She tugged my sleeve. Can I talk to you? I nodded. We went to the mudroom and sat on the little bench where we used to put on her snow boots when she was 4. She looked at her phone. She told me... She stopped. Her lip quivered. She told me you gave up, that you wanted out of the family, that you were willing to sign everything over just to be free. I didn't say anything. Let the lie hang there. But then I saw the video, she said. My heart slowed. The one you left on my phone last week, hidden in that Florida photos folder. It wasn't photos. Shimmer, so she'd found it. I hoped you would, I said. I wasn't supposed to yet, right? Insistence. Not yet, but I had to be sure, in case today got rewritten. She swallowed. It's you at your computer, going through everything. The spreadsheets, the voice recordings. You explained everything. And then the clip. My throat tightened. The hotel footage? I asked. She nodded. Mom walking into the suite. Marcus signing the room service receipt. The timestamp matched the night she said you were out of town. She told me you'd left because you couldn't handle holidays anymore. Relinquid. Let her continue. You said in the video that you weren't angry, that you were sad, that you weren't going to scream or explode because you didn't deserve that. Her voice cracked. And you said you were still my dad no matter what happened next, even if Mom tried to make me believe otherwise. She paused. That broke me more than anything. Because in all my planning, all my calm execution, all the destruction I'd orchestrated, I'd almost forgotten that some truths need to be told directly, not argued, not proven, just offered. I took her hand gently. I never wanted you to see any of this, but I couldn't risk you growing up with a version of me that never existed. Relinquid. I know, she whispered. We sat there breathing in the quiet. You're not like her, I finally said. I know, she repeated, firmer. She looked at the door, voices still leaking through. Marcus's cracked tone, Rachel's venom failing to land, Jennifer's indignation turning on itself. I hate how she talks about you, Emma said suddenly. Like you're just someone who writes checks. I smiled faintly. To be fair, I did write a lot of checks. Yeah, but you also showed up, even when she didn't want you to. Relinquid. Not revenge, not even vindication. Recognition. Truth. Maybe someday, healing. I squeezed her hand before standing. You'll be okay. She nodded. I don't want to go back out there. You don't have to. They already lost the only thing that mattered. She didn't ask what. She already knew. The room was fractured by then. Voices overlapping like static. Nobody finishing sentences. Just spreading panic. Jennifer was yelling at Patterson about sabotage. Rachel was pacing, barefoot, heels abandoned, mascara smudged, throwing around words like malicious intent and fabricated timelines, as if volume could reverse timestamps or erase Marcus's name from the audit trail. Marcus hadn't spoken in a while, just sat, hunched forward in the armchair, phone in one hand, palm against his temple. The flash drives were still in his coat pocket. By now he knew what was on them without checking. His phone pinged, not a call, a message, short and brutal. He unlocked the screen and read, one line, then another. His lips parted like someone seeing their own obituary. I watched him tilt the phone. Not for them to see, for me. Because that message wasn't for everyone. It was meant for me. Contract suspended, he read softly, eyes on the display. All investigations tied to David's disclosure. Do not speak publicly. Unborn twice, then slowly turned to face me. Voice hoarse, fragile. What did you do? Tits. The room went still. Patterson stopped mid-sentence. Jennifer's tablet hit the floor. Rachel stopped pacing. I stood there, hands folded. Firelight flickering across the documents spread on the coffee table. I took a breath and said it quietly. No anger, no glee, just finality. I checked the receipts. He stared, not understanding. I checked the receipts when your quarterly filings didn't match reimbursement reports. When your calendar showed back-to-back client sessions in hotels with no client names. When her name appeared in 3 procurement memos while she told me she was reorganizing closets. When you made her a consulting asset without declaring the conflict to your board. When trust funds were redirected to cover her business liabilities without disclosure. Retreated, 1 pace. You mistook silence for ignorance, but silence is just the audit before the report. Marcus sank back, still holding his phone, staring at the screen like it might explode. Is that real? Jennifer whispered. They suspended his contract? Patterson didn't answer, too busy texting with shaking hands. Rachel just stood there, blinking. No longer pacing, just existing. A statue in ruins she'd helped build. You've been planning this? Marcus whispered. No, I said. You've been writing this. I just proofread it. I walked to the fire and picked up a piece of paper from Rachel's original folder. The document she expected me to sign today. I folded it in half, then quarters, then eighths. Set it in the fire. Nobody stopped me. Nobody dared, because the temperature in that room didn't come from the flames. It came from the realization that the man they'd cornered wasn't a pawn. He was the final audit, and the books had just closed. Nobody followed me. I stepped outside into winter dusk. The sky was that gray that doesn't snow or shine, just hangs there. The porch was quiet. Behind me, raised voices, whispered threats, panic tapping on screens, all faded into silence. I didn't slam the door. Didn't look back. The final insult was how gently I left. No coat, no suitcase. I hadn't brought one. They thought I was walking into a trap. They didn't realize I'd built the maze. As I passed the gate with its fake pine wreath, my phone buzzed. I'd set it to send at that exact moment. My private account, one they didn't know existed, created under a different name, secured through a legal firm in another state. I opened the message. Subject: termination confirmed. Sent to Marcus's executive board, internal legal counsel, HR. Attached files: timeline PDF, audio logs, tax cross-references. Each one neatly compiled, time-stamped, corroborated. The kind of package no executive can explain away. I didn't need an email body. The attachments spoke louder. I closed the gate behind me. The click of the latch was more satisfying than it should have been. Behind me, the front door was still open. As I crossed the street, I heard it. Marcus's phone rang again, louder, urgent. He answered. I stopped walking, didn't turn, just stood there. I heard his voice through the cold air. What? Wait, he what? You have the files? A pause. You need me to? What do you mean, internal hold? I didn't. He's lying. There's no. Akir, another pause. No, I didn't authorize that. Someone told him. Someone had to. Exact silence then, like glass breaking. What did you tell him? His voice cracked, broken. I imagined him turning to Rachel, and I knew she wouldn't answer, because the truth wasn't in words anymore. It was in files, in signed clauses, in frozen accounts, in the trust agreement clause. Any attempt to misappropriate assets through extramarital influence will trigger immediate reassignment of full legal control to the primary grantor. Relinquid called me a relic, a placeholder, a man in sad sweaters who paid sad bills. Now, she was staring at ruins of everything she thought she'd rebuilt without me. Not just a failed ambush, not just a botched divorce, extinction. Their plan had a beginning and end. Mine had layers. I didn't need to yell or hit or scream. I just needed to remember who I was. The man behind the curtain, the ghost in the audit trail, the signature they never noticed on the bottom of every document they ignored. So I kept walking down the street, into the cold, into the quiet. I had no bags, but I wasn't empty. I was done.